Aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of a young lady dipping her toe in a bathtub that was too hot for her? Simply enthralling. Hello there, and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. Another day, another sonnet. Today we're looking at Sonnet 94. And before we start, I was thinking it'd be quite fun, wouldn't it, to maybe... Well, tell me if you like this idea. Or don't tell me. There's no pressure to give feedback. But I had an idea that maybe I'd go to some London pubs. Maybe some pubs that Shakespeare would have gone to. I know there's the famous George pub in London Bridge that's still knocking about. I think a lot of the big hitters drank there. Shakespeare and Marlowe and Ben Jonson and then later on, I think Pepys probably went there. That's completely made up, but I imagine he did. If Shakespeare was going there, everyone would have wanted to go there for a drink, wouldn't they? Anyway, go to these pubs that are often quite rustic still, you know. Sometimes there's a fire burning in winter and hay on the floor. They're really leaning into the old school aspect of a pub, a London pub. And I thought if I could get some good actors to perform these sonnets quite quietly and just sort of simply at a table in one of these pubs with a nice pint of ale by their side, I thought that would be quite a fun little series. What do you think about that? Think that would be good? Would that be quite interesting? Anyway, back to the meat of the episode, which is, of course, Sonnet 94. Let's take a listen. They that have power to hurt, and will do none, that do not do the thing they most do show, who, moving others, are themselves as stone, unmoved, cold, and to temptation slow. They rightly do inherit heaven's graces, and husband nature's riches from expense. They are the lords and owners of their faces, others but stewards of their excellence. The summer's flower is to the summer sweet, though to itself it only live and die. But if that flower with base infection meet, the basest weed outbraves his dignity. For sweetest things turn sourest by their deeds. Lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds. There we are, Sonnet 94. I'm a big fan of this one. I don't know if you are, but I like it. It's another one of Shakespeare's sonnets where he's talking about deceit and cheating and affairs, which, as we know, he's quite obsessive about. But rightly so. I mean, if you're being cheated on, or you suspect you're being cheated on, it's probably what would take up most of your mental space. But I like this one because it's sort of a warning, isn't it? It's like these people that have the power, you know, and the looks and the sexiness, and decide not to be deceitful, are amazing. But the people that give in to temptation, they are rotters, essentially. And he's using flowers as a symbol there. That's my vague thoughts of what Sonnet 94 is all about. But let's dive into it line by line and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about. So we start with, they that have power to hurt, and will do none, that do not do the thing they most do show. Now I think with this whole section he's talking about someone's looks, so the power of their beauty. But it still works with just general power as well. So I think he's saying those who have the power to hurt other people, probably by how hot they are, how sexy they are, and decide not to. Those that look really sexy but don't have sex. I think that's what he means by they do not do the thing they most do show. So they do not have sex, but they look sexy. I mean, he's not saying sexy probably back then, but they're really attractive, but they're not just having sex willy-nilly. That's what I understand from that. And then he continues with, who moving others are themselves as stone, unmoved, cold, and to temptation slow. So all along the same lines, who moving others, who attract others, but are themselves like a stone. So others will be very attracted to them, and they'll be very into them and probably pursue them. But they are like a stone. And then he goes on to explain why they're like a stone, which is because they are unmoved, or unmoved as we would say now, cold and resistant to temptation slow. So they're very moral. And then he's finishing this thought with, they rightly do inherit heaven's graces and husband nature's riches from expense. So these people that he's just described, that have the power to hurt people, but don't, and are so sexy, but they don't have sex with anyone. I mean, maybe they do have sex with some people, I imagine. But, they don't cheat, they don't betray their lover, and they don't give in to temptation. They are like a stone. These people, they rightly deserve heaven's grace, and they make the most of nature's gifts, the gift that they were given, the gift of beauty. I mean, some might argue that they're not making the most of nature's gift, because if you're really beautiful, you're really sexy, you might just sort of try and get all the things that you want from your looks. You might try and deceive people and sort of play up to how hot you are. I don't know, that's just an alternative look at it. Anyway, Shakespeare is saying that this person is great, and that's a very noble thing to do, to be like a stone. Then he continues with, they are the lords and owners of their faces, others but stewards of their excellence. I really like these couple of lines, and I think what he's saying is these people have full control over themselves. They really own their face. Not literally, obviously they own their face, but they own their actions, and they are conscious of what they do, whereas other people are merely loaning out their beauty for others to use, essentially. They are stewards, they're caretakers of their faces, and they just throw their faces about willy-nilly. That's the second time I've used willy-nilly in this episode, but I feel like it's apt here. So normal people are going, yeah, go on then, I'll have it off with you. Oh yeah, go on, I'll have it off with you. And they're just loaning out they're a steward, all right? They are loaning out their faces. They don't have full ownership and control of their faces. Obviously, again, not literally, but that's what he's saying. These people, normal people, a lot of people, just throw themselves about. Whereas these noble people who are like stones, they have full ownership and they're very careful about who they get off with, I think. This is all to do with love and relationships in my head. And now we're diving into the world of metaphors, as Shakespeare is wont to do. The summer's flower is to the summer sweet, though to itself it only live and die. So a flower that flowers in the summer seems very sweet to us, which is lovely. But to the flower, it only lives and dies. That's all it's thinking about, really. I mean, if flowers do think like that, which, the jury's out on that one. Then he continues with, but if that flower with base infection meet, the basest weed outbraves his dignity. So we've got this sweet, lovely summer flower, but if that flower gets infected for some reason and starts being all gross and dying, then even the basest, lowliest of weeds seem better. And I do believe this is a metaphor for cheating. You've got this lovely flower in the summer, but then it does something stupid, like has an affair. If flowers have an affair, maybe it's having an affair with a tulip or something like that. And then it starts rotting because of that. And then just like even the most basic of weed is better than that flower because it's corrupted itself. And now we're on to the final couplet. For sweetest things turn sourest by their deeds. Lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds. And this final couplet really rounds everything off nicely, I think. And it's saying the sweetest things turn sour by doing bad things, by their wrongdoings. And then ending on another flower metaphor, which is the same as the first one really. He's just being more specific. He's naming a flower. And he's saying lilies that rot, they actually smell much worse than just a basic weed, just a lowly old weed. Now, I think it's about time we put Sonnet 94 to our story. And if you remember, Shakespeare, of course, is in this relationship with Christopher Marlowe. It's had some serious ups and downs over the last few episodes, but Shakespeare is supposedly going to marry Christopher Marlowe. They've gone to this restaurant. Christopher Marlowe has been sort of flirting with the maitre d'. Shakespeare noticed. He read him, of course, a sonnet to say, like, I see what's going on, mate. You need to stop with the flirting and the affairs and all of that, all right, if we're going to get married. And then they go back home, go to sleep. Shakespeare notices that Christopher Marlowe has got up in the night and he's gone off. So Shakespeare follows him and he sees that he's going to meet the maitre d' from the restaurant. Can you believe it? The scandal. So Shakespeare trudges home and gets back into bed, and Christopher Marlowe returns home in the morning and gets into bed with Shakespeare and pretends like nothing has happened. And Shakespeare then, at the breakfast table, is questioning him and saying, what were you up to? Everything good? And Christopher Marlowe's just smiling back at him as if nothing has happened. So, of course, Shakespeare thinks, well, the only way to get through to him is to read him a sonnet, and specifically Sonnet 93, which is kind of saying, I'm on to you, and you're not actually as sweet as you look, mate. You might be giving all these sweet little smiles and pretending like nothing's happened, but I know something's up. So let's see how that goes down with Christopher Marlowe and how Sonnet 94 fits into all this. Shakespeare finishes reading Sonnet 93 to Christopher Marlowe. Marlowe says, Shakespeare, I don't really know what you're talking about with all this Adam and Eve stuff. I mean, I'm just a nice guy. I just like to smile, and there's nothing bad. There's nothing insidious going on. And Shakespeare looks him in the eyes and says, oh, really, Christopher? There's nothing going on behind my back? And Marlowe says, No, absolutely not. It's just me being me. I'm a happy guy. I like to smile. Nothing going on. No affairs or anything like that. I'm too old for that now, Shakespeare. I'm 22. I'm beyond affairs. But Shakespeare, of course, knows that Christopher Marlowe has been at the maitre d's house all night. A tear runs down his cheek and he quickly wipes it away. He can't let Christopher Marlowe see that he's upset. And suddenly he gets an idea. He says, well, Christopher, it's such a lovely summer day outside. Perhaps we could go to Vauxhall Gardens and traipse around and look at some of the lovely flowers and things they have there. Marlowe says, oh, that sounds quite nice, actually, Shakespeare. Very good idea. But I have to get back by 6 p.m. just because I'm seeing a friend sort of around 6. Shakespeare says, oh, you've seen a friend, are you? What friend's that? Oh, no one, just someone I haven't seen for a long time. He's called David. So, yeah, David. And yeah, just a friend. Nothing more, obviously. Obviously nothing more because I'm in a relationship with you. Anyway, yeah, Vauxhall Gardens, that sounds great. So with that, they leave the house and hail a horse and cart to take them over the bridge to Vauxhall. On arrival at Vauxhall, Shakespeare takes Christopher Marlowe's hand, and they walk gaily along the Vauxhall Gardens trail. There are the most beautiful flowers out and about. Shakespeare looks to Christopher Marlowe and says, "Aren't these flowers just stunning?" And Marlowe says, "They are. They've got everything. There's roses, there's tulips, there's, what else is there? Hyacinth, and indeed crocuses, or croci. A wonderful array of colours and smells." Shakespeare is scouring the flowers. He is searching for something. Christopher Marlowe says, "Is everything okay, Shakespeare? You seem preoccupied." And Shakespeare says, "No, just sort of looking around, just taking everything in." But he is really getting amongst those flowers. He is desperately looking for something. Eventually, after a good hour of walking around, Shakespeare spots a particular crop of lilies. And one of those lilies is blackened and limp and looks really worse for wear. And Shakespeare exclaims, "Aha!" runs over to the lily, plucks it from the ground, holds it up to Christopher Marlowe's nose and says, "Smell that, Marlowe." And Marlowe says, "Oh, God, no, that's horrible. What are you doing? There's loads of lovely lilies here, and there's roses, and they all smell really nice. Why are you showing me this one?" And Shakespeare says, "You don't like the smell of it? Would you maybe prefer the smell of what, these gross weeds here?" And Marlowe says, "Well, maybe. I mean, that lily really does stink. It's horrible, and it looks gross as well." And Shakespeare says, "Yes, it does look gross, doesn't it? And it does smell bad, doesn't it?" And Christopher Marlowe says, "Sorry, what's going on, Shakespeare?" And Shakespeare says, "This lily, it could look like these other lilies, these lovely smelling, gorgeous looking lilies, but it doesn't. It's sort of corroded. I wonder why it's corroded." And Marlowe says, "I don't know, it's just got infected, I guess." "Yes, it has got infected, hasn't it? By something. I wonder if it's been cheating on its lily wife or husband with another lily." Marlowe says, "I don't think flowers have affairs, to be honest, Shakespeare. I don't think that's really what they do. I don't think they have relationships like that." And Shakespeare says, "That's not the point. It's a metaphor, all right? Listen, I've written a sonnet, of course. I wrote it in the carriage. You might have seen me writing it, actually." "Yes, I wondered what you were writing in the carriage." "Well, it was this, and it was all about corruption, and all about flowers and affairs." Shakespeare is red in the face, and he's still brandishing the lily in front of him, furiously. "You're going to stand there, Marlowe, and listen to this sonnet, and understand. Do you hear me, Marlowe?" Marlowe says, "Shakespeare, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm just a guy looking at another guy with love in his eyes." And Shakespeare says, "Shut up, Marlowe, and listen. Listen to the sonnet I've written you, and while I am reading it, look at this dead lily." And with that, he plucks out Sonnet 94 from his back pocket and reads, Sonnet 94. Those who have the power to hurt others, but decide not to. Those that look really sexy, but don't have sex. Who attract others, but are themselves like a stone, unmoved, cold and resistant to temptation. They rightly deserve heaven's grace, and make the most of nature's gifts. They have full control over themselves, whereas others are merely loaning out their beauty for others to use. The summer flower seems sweet in the summer, even though to itself it only lives and dies. But if that flower gets infected, then even the grossest weeds seem better. For the sweetest things turn sour by their wrongdoing. Lilies that rot smell much worse than common weeds. So there we have it, Sonnet 94. The plot doesn't thicken so much as gets more depressing. For some reason, Shakespeare is still pursuing this relationship with Christopher Marlowe, even though it's toxic as hell and Marlowe is having affairs left, right and centre. But he might have found a metaphor that finally breaks through to Marlowe and makes him understand his deceit and treachery. Find out if it works, and if Marlowe takes heed next week on the final couplet. Until then, bye.